Usually when we talk about a medical diagnosis,
Yeah.
there's like this expectation of precision.
Okay.
You break your arm, the x-ray shows a jagged line, the doctor just points and says, there it is. But with psychological trauma, that x-ray machine usually doesn't apply. Diagnosing mental health can feel like searching for the origin of a mystery illness, except for one very specific case we're unpacking for you today.
Yeah, exactly. And I will gladly put on the lecture hat for this one, because the mechanics of post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, are just fascinating. We're going to break down how it evolved from a battlefield phenomenon into a complex disorder of biology and memory, and we'll be using section 15.6 of chapter 15 from Psychology 2E as our guide today.
Awesome. And I've got my student notebook totally ready. So let's start with how this diagnosis even came to be. Because for most of the 20th century, this was just called shell shock, right?
Right, or combat neurosis. It was assumed to be strictly tied to soldiers in wartime. But by the late 1970s, the psychological field realized women experiencing sexual trauma, like domestic battery or assault, were suffering the exact same symptoms.
Wow. The exact same symptoms.
Yeah, identical. It wasn't about the battlefield at all. It was about the trauma itself, which totally changed how it's classified.
So looking at psychiatry's official rulebook, the DSM-5, the textbook notes that PTSD is actually the only disorder listed where a specific external cause is explicitly required. Like it has to involve extreme trauma, actual or threatened death, serious injury, or sexual violence.
Exactly. Without that specific external event, you just cannot be diagnosed with PTSD.
So it really is like that physical wound analogy. You actually know the exact weapon that caused the injury, rather than just guessing the origin of a random fever.
That's a really great way to frame it. And section 15.6 gives us the data on how often that weapon strikes, so to speak. Roughly 7% of adults in the U.S. experience PTSD in their lifetime.
7%? That's actually pretty high.
It is, but those numbers spike during mass traumas. Nearly 21% of survivors in affected areas suffered from PTSD a year after Hurricane Katrina.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and 12.6% of Manhattan residents had it 2 to 3 years after 9/11.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But the textbook also mentions that trauma involving direct harm by others carries a much higher risk for PTSD than natural disasters. Which, I mean, why is that?
Yeah.
A hurricane is just as life-threatening, right?
Right, well, it comes down to the social contract. A natural disaster is chaotic and terrifying, sure. But human-inflicted trauma, like combat or assault, it fundamentally shatters our underlying sense of safety and trust in other people.
Oh, like a betrayal.
Exactly. It's a betrayal by our own species, which is profoundly harder for the human brain to process.
That is so interesting. But it's not just the external event, right? Because section 15.6 talks about a biological vulnerability too.
Yeah.
Specifically people who have short versions of a gene that regulates serotonin.
Yes. So serotonin helps regulate mood and our response to threats. The diathesis stress model suggests that having this shorter gene creates a hidden biological vulnerability.
Okay, so I'm thinking of it like having terrible shock absorbers on a car. The short serotonin gene basically means your brain's emotional shock absorbers are worn out. A smooth road is fine, but if you hit a massive pothole, like the traumatic event, the impact is catastrophic.
That is a perfect analogy. The biology creates the fragility, and the environment delivers the blow. You really need both for the disorder to take root.
And once it takes root, we have to look at how PTSD sustains itself. Because the textbook points heavily to classical conditioning. Like, say someone survives a plane crash. The extreme terror gets paired with the everyday sight and sound of an airplane.
Right, so later, just hearing a commercial flight overhead triggers that exact same terror. The brain is trying to protect you by over-associating danger with any related stimuli.
Wait, hold on though. If the brain is so deeply conditioned that it perfectly remembers the exact sound of an engine to keep you safe, why does it fail to remember the event itself? I mean, the textbook says memories of the trauma are often fragmented and lack detail.
I know, it's wild. That is the ultimate paradox of PTSD. The brain is so completely overwhelmed by the sheer terror and adrenaline of the event that its normal memory filing system just crashes.
Oh, so it doesn't save properly.
Exactly. It doesn't encode the experience as a coherent story with a past, present, and future. Instead, it just captures a disjointed loop of sensory data. You know, a specific smell, a loud noise, a flash of movement.
And because it's not filed away in the past properly, those raw fragments are just kind of floating around, triggering intrusive flashbacks that feel like they're happening right now.
Precisely. But the textbook also highlights a powerful mechanism for healing, which is social support.
Oh yeah, the Vietnam study.
Right. A 14-year study of over 1,300 Vietnam War veterans proved that those who returned to low social support were significantly more likely to develop PTSD. Those who felt supported by a community were vastly protected.
That's incredible.
It really is. The comfort and assistance of others actually buffers the nervous system.
So bringing this all together for you listening, PTSD isn't just an emotional reaction. It's a measurable intersection of conditioned responses, genetics, and fragmented memory, all stemming from a specific, identifiable wound.
Yeah, and the ultimate shield against that wound festering is human connection.
Which leaves us with a pretty heavy question to consider. If community and social support act as our natural biological defense against trauma taking root, how might modern society's increasing isolation be silently breaking down our defenses? I mean, if that metaphorical X-ray machine we talked about could scan for loneliness, how many of us are walking around completely unprotected? Something to think about.